A Jaguar F-Type is never the rational choice. When it comes to values, depreciation is significantly higher than for its competitors, making it a very expensive car to own from new. So why do so many people buy them? Sound and uniqueness are characteristics that persuaded many people, and most importantly, triumphs over the irrationalities that come with owning an F-Type. However, going forward, the purchase of an F-Type could be very well a decision that can be made with the heart and with the brain. The 2024 75th anniversary edition will be the last and final F-Type, after which JLR will continue as a pure electric brand in 2025. And this discontinuation and the move to electric vehicles has the potential to dramatically shift the course of the F-Type's value development. After all, people usually want what they can't get. Now, the so-called reimagined strategy from JLR, in which they committed to fully electric vehicles, was already presented in 2021. And this means that the information should already be reflected in today's prices, and that, potentially, price trends stabilized. Let's figure out if that's the case. We'll first have a look at the current market and then at the price trends. Over here we have the US market at the end of June. In total there are 736 cars for sale, and this is 14% less than 3 months ago. Supply decreased, and this is in line with the rest of the market. As you can see from the legend, you can choose from a plethora of models if you decide to go for an F-Type. An additional benefit of this is that there's an F-Type for almost every budget. For just over $25,000 you can find yourself in a high mileage V6, V6S or even a V8S. However, you probably want to spend a bit more to get a fresher example. Personally, I would always opt for the V6S over the V6. The price gap is minimal and I found the suspension and the power a bit underwhelming on the V6, but that's of course just my opinion. Now, another interesting thing when it comes to the prices is the price overlap. This is actually similar to the 911 market. For let's say $60,000 you can find a V8R, a 400 Sport, a P380 or an almost brand new facelift 4-cylinder. Naturally, the latter one will depreciate a lot more than a V8R from 2016, but that's a natural trade-off as the car is a lot newer. The beauty of this all is that you can choose. Now, looking at the top end of the market, we can see that the SVRs demand a premium of approximately $10,000 over the V8R, and that prices are in some cases on par with the latest P450s. Again, the choice is yours. You can opt for the more modern P450 or the animal that is the SVR. Now, at the top of the price hierarchy, we find the most recent V8R. To be more precise, the new V8Rs. Do you see these purple clouds around $120,000? They are all new V8Rs. Supply for new cars increased drastically through 2022 and topped 3 months ago at 176 cars. But now then, the big question is of course, are these prices influenced by the discontinuation of the F-Type? To answer this question, we need to look at the price development over time. If they are indeed affected by Jaguar's new strategy, we should see that prices decreased less than in the rest of the market, stabilized or even increased. So this means that the market context is important. Car prices of course surged during the pandemic, but topped in the first half of 2022. Since then, they have been decreasing. Sports and supercars typically lost between 10 and 15% during last year. For brand new cars, the numbers can be slightly higher, and for the older ones slightly lower. Now finally, it's important to note that the prices for some cars increased by a few percentage points during the spring. So without further ado, let's have a look at the F-Type's price trends. We start with the first generation V6s, so the ones before the facelift. We have the P380, 400 Sport, P340, V6S and V6. Both the all-wheel drive and rear-wheel driven cars are included, but I didn't split the data to avoid too small sample sizes. Now, looking at the prices, we can see that compared to September of last year, 400 Sports lost 14.7% or $9,000, base models 15.9% or $6,300, and S's 20.3% or $9,400. And this reveals that, in this market segment, the cars are still depreciating at high rates. With 15 to 20%, the rates are above the year-over-year decreases for other cars, even though that we're looking at a shorter period over here. We can't know how these trends would have looked like without the electrification news of JLR, but we do know that they underperformed compared to the market. Looking back a little bit further, we can see that price trends were in fact never exceptionally strong. Prices increased slightly during the pandemic price surge, but the increase that you see here is low compared to its competitors. It's not all bad news though. There are some premature signs that depreciation rates could be flattening. Look for example at the confidence intervals for the V6 and V6S's. They show weak bottoming indications following relatively stable price developments for the high mileage cars. That is cars with more than 44,000 miles. Moreover, depreciation rates for the P340 and P380 were extremely low during the last 3 months. And all of these developments are premature indications that the upcoming price development could be more positive than the one during the previous 9 months. But let's move on and have a look at the V8s before the facelift. Over here we have the prices for the SVR, S and R. And this shows that prices compared to September of last year dropped by 10.7% in the R market, by 21.1% in the S market and by 12.2% in the SVR market. So this means that on a general level the V8s lost less than the V6s. But we need to be a bit careful when we interpret these trends. The drop in the S market is an overestimation due to a change in market composition. The median mileage increased from 24 to 60,000 miles. Correcting for this change, the price decrease would fall between 12 and 15%. Second, we need to account for the difference in model year in the R market. If we only look at the V8Rs and split the price trend by model year, we can see that it are the last models that are responsible for the price decrease on an aggregate level. Cars from 2020 lost 21%, whereas cars from 2015 only lost 8%. And this is an astonishing difference. And this also means that the year-over-year decreases are likely to fall in the same range as its competitors. I of course also investigated similar plots for the V6s, but the differences over there were not so large. Hence, the V6 market performed a bit better than the V6 market. Moreover, rates are on par with its competitors. So perhaps there is some effect of Jaguar's new strategy over here. But what about the facelift cars? History taught us that the last iterations are often the best and the most likely to go up in value. Is that the case for the F-types as well? Certainly not. The cars are way too new. Over here we have the price trend for the P380. And this reveals that prices are down by 11.4% or $9,000 compared to September of last year. And to be honest, this number is not too bad, considering that these cars are from 2021. I expected something higher. Over its entire lifetime though, the number is more than twice as high, but also not too bad. Compared to September 2021, the P380s lost 25% or $94,000. And this number of course captures the transition from new to used cars. 25% over 2 years for an F-type is quite good on a standalone basis. The problem occurs when you start to compare it to other cars. 992 Carreras lost for example only 2.2%, while this is 9% for the 4-liter Cayman GTS's. The links to those market updates will appear right over here. If we look at the facelift V8s, we can see that the situation isn't much better. Over here we have the price development per model year for the R and the P450. Again, a bit of caution is needed when interpreting this graph. All market segments, with exception of the 2021 Rs, mainly consist out of new cars. Therefore, only the blue line shows the actual value loss that occurs when you start to drive your car. Looking at the numbers, we can see that 2021 Rs lost 11% since September of last year. And this is the same for the P380. If we extrapolate that to 1 year, we arrive at roughly 14%. Again, that's not too bad when compared to competitors. It's only when we look at the long-term trend that things fall apart slightly. Compared to September 21, values are down by 28%. And this is very similar to the 25% of the P380, which also means that it's higher than for its competitors. Finally then, the 4-cylinders. Is there any magic happening in those price trends? Not really. This graph shows that the facelift cars lost 12.6% since September and that pre-facelift cars lost 16.4%. The 12.6% is in line with the competition, while the 16.4% is on the high side. Looking at the long-term trends, we can see that 2018 and 2019 cars increased during the pandemic price surge, while the newer 2020 and 2021s continue to depreciate. Now, after all of those graphs, I think it's time that we conclude and answer the question that we asked ourselves at the beginning of the video. Is the F-Type turning into a collectible now that it's discontinued and JLR is moving to electric-only vehicles? At this moment, there's no evidence for that in the price trends. Old V6 models are currently depreciating at rates that are higher than the market average. Old V8 models are depreciating at the same or at lower rates than the market average, while the new facelift cars are depreciating at approximately the same speed as the market, but lost significantly more over the last 2 years. Of course, we cannot know how the price trend would have looked like if the F-Type wouldn't be discontinued. But based on the data that we saw, I think it's fair to conclude that at this very moment, there's little evidence supporting the claim that F-Types are turning into collectibles. Values moved in the same direction as the market. But as always, we need to add a little bit of nuance to this conclusion. The fact that it didn't happen yet doesn't mean that it cannot happen in the future. We saw some premature signs in the data that future depreciation rates could be lower than the current ones. And if I were to speculate on this, I would put my money on a V8. Price trends for those have been the strongest. However, it might also never happen, meaning that F-Types will continue to follow the traditional depreciation trajectory. Something that probably doesn't bother F-Type owners when they press the start button on a Sunday morning and wake up their neighbors. Having said that, I'll continue to track the F-Type prices, so if you want to stay up to date on the latest developments in the F-Type market, I recommend that you subscribe to the channel. And with that we arrive at the end of this video. Now if you enjoy this data-driven way of analyzing car markets but would like to see a video for a different car, head over to my channel. Over there you'll find market updates for a large variety of cars. Can't find the car you're looking for? Let me know the name of the car by commenting it down below in the comment section. Once there are enough requests for a certain car, I'll make a video about it.